I've noticed that I might be having some network connection issue. Can everybody hear me okay? Just please type that you can still hear. I see the one yes from Tet before, but it just gave me this warning now, so. All right. Avinu Malkeinu, our Father and our King. Mi kamocha ba'elim Adonai. Mi ke'Elohim, mi ke'Elohei ha'amim, ein acher gadol mimech Adonai, ki ata gadol mikol Elohim. Who is like you, God, among the gods of the nations, the divine beings ruling over the nations? There is none like you. Mode'im anachnu, ki anachnu yode'im et shemcha. We're so grateful that we know your fame, v'gam et kevodecha, and also your glory. Ken yehi ratzon Adonai Elohim Elohei Avotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaaqov, ki hayom hazeh אנחנו יכולים ללמוד טוב בעיניך את דבריך מספר התורה שלך. If you will, O God of our fathers, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, that we will study well today in your word, in your Torah. Pitach na aleinu mashahu seter sitra v'tishlach na et ruach HaKodesh Adonai Aleinu. Show us something secret today, Abba, and please send your Holy Spirit. L'kol hadavrim ha'ele anachnu nevarechecha shem Yeshua HaMashiach. Okay, great. Glad you can hear well. Hallelujah. All right. Thank you for those of you who came. For those of you who are here now. Looks like the last few minutes we had an explosion in the turnout, so that's great. All right. Seems like about the right time. So, today's Torah portion in our triennial cycle, we are on the 5th Torah portion in this Shmita year, and the pareshah is called Eyleh Toldot Noach. These are, and there's that special word we've talked about the last couple parshiot, toledot, Hebrew toledot, which means, it can mean many things in context. So it can mean the generations, the line, like this is the line of Noah. It can be the history in more general terms. This is the history of Noach. But you'll note here that we don't have that sefer record indicating. So this was likely an oral tradition, which was later written down around the time of Moshe Rabbeinu. The pareshah, in case you didn't know, is Genesis chapter 6, verse 9, through chapter 7, verse 24. The Haftarah starts with Isaiah chapter 54, verse 9, and, well, we're not really sure how far it goes. We're waiting for the scholarship to come in. The general rule of thumb with the Haftarah for the triennial is that we know where to start, and we end on a happy note, and it's usually around 10 verses or so. Yeah, so so we'll do that today. Here is our photo from the Masorah today. This is from the actual Masoretic text. And if you look, here you've got kind of a zoomed out view of part of the page in the Codex. You see these special symbols over here. There's some stuff over here telling us something. And because they're taking the space, over here is where we actually have the marking of the Sedra, that is of the pareshah. So let's look a little bit closer, shall we? So when you look closer, you can see, I'll go ahead and mark it here. So here is our symbol. I forgot to put on my glove. I bought some special gloves so when I touched the screen with my hand, it would not register, right? And forgot to put it on. Funny. I even had it in my backpack and everything to bring down to the basement. But I didn't bring the backpack down. The backpack like disappeared. so anyway, there's our marker. That's telling us on this line, it says, it just tells you, notice how it's a little bit, it's on the right-hand side here, right? So, sorry, my tab did that. Means it's not over here on the left. It's over on the right. So we're talking about this line is where the pareshah starts. And sure enough, we go back to laser pointer. You can see it. Eyleh Toldot Noach. Noach ish tzadik tamim haya. So there we have it. It goes on and on. Okay. Bedorotai, if you want to finish the thought. Et Elohim hithalech Noach. And then we go on to see about how he gave birth, etc., etc. I mean, he sired, etc. So these are the registrations, the generations, the history of the line of Noach. Noach. You can see how Noach is written there twice. He's got these two little dots on top in the Masorah. So Noach. We learn from many of the sages in the Talmud that whenever in the Torah you see a person's name listed twice, this tells us that that the person in question is a tzaddik, that is a just person, a righteous person. Dr. Vera asks, what is the script below? So I think he's referring to these comments down here, right? So this is part of the Masorah as well. This is part of what's called the, I think it's Masorah, what's it? I can't remember the stupid Latin word. Gadol is coming to my head. It means Gadol in Latin. Magnum or something. So basically there's comments on top and below of each page. Right? So if we go back to the previous page, you'll see there's also comments on the top. It's not a commentary. Oh, I didn't do the full page. Okay, sorry. No full page this time. But you'll see on the top and the bottom there's comments. And it's not like a commentary. So, for example, it's not the scribes telling you, okay, this is because of the midrash, such and such. It usually gives statistical type information, or it's giving general corrections on the page that did not fit in the margins. So it will say things like, such and such a word on this page occurs 26 times in the Torah, or 12 times in the Tanakh, etc. Things like that. That type of information. Yeah, my glove. Yeah. Oh, you must have come in just now, Doctor. Yeah, I commented on the glove that I forgot to bring it downstairs. I placed it in the backpack, so I remember. And then the backpack was missing when I came down, so I'm not wearing my glove, although I have one. But I haven't done any page turns by accident yet, so. Yeah, so there's lots in the Masoretic tradition that doesn't come down to us in the Bible. Every once in a while I'll quote from it, like I'll take one of the interesting stats. Oh, okay, it says this word is only used in 3 places, and it'll list the verses, right? And each of those verses, the locations rather. In each of these places, it has impending doom or something like that, right? So then this further aids in understanding why the sages will do a certain Gazeira Shava, a certain hidden interpretation or connection between 2 verses because of the doom that's present in both of them or something like that. And Dr. Vera comments that there is no cholem vav, we call that full cholem, right, in the last syllable of toledot. Oh yeah, look at that. Yeah, true. There's just the defective cholem. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, that happens sometimes. So here we see, this is a clear example of respect for the text. So here is what Dr. Vera is talking about. See that little dot right here? The full complete spelling, the plane spelling it's also called, would be with this for the O sound. And instead of having this here, we have just the little dot. So this shows how much the text was respected. When the Masoretes pointed the text, they did not change the consonantal text, right? So if they were to insert a vav there to spell it more correctly, right? So for example, when we type or write Hebrew without, like we're just typing or writing Hebrew, we would always put a cholem there, a full cholem, right? Because we're not using Nikkudot, the Nikkud. We're not using the vowel pointers, right? Like in modern Hebrew, they rarely use it. Right? Only if there's some ambiguity, or if it's like for children or immigrants or something like that, or like a store sign maybe. So, or like a name, sometimes with a name. And so, but when we write it, we always will do that. So you might see sometimes when I put a note about Elohim, the Elo, often the Bible has no O there, right? Like, look down here. See? Elohim, you'll notice it's just the dot. But when we write it without vowels, we write a full cholem there. We just write the straight line instead. So it's clearer, right? Because it's what's called a vowel letter. So thanks for pointing that out, Doctor. That's interesting. That's there. And there, actually, when this happens, sometimes there's commentary from some of the sages on it too. Like, they'll come up with a reason, like that's not there for this reason. Or kind of my go-to explanation is, well, maybe there's a Gematria thing happening in that verse, right? And if you add a vav, that's another 6 in the value, and they didn't want the 6 there. So, because we do not count defective cholems, just the dots, when we're dealing with Gematria. Okay, let's go on. And here we are. This is Genesis chapter 6, verse 9 is where our Torah portion starts. Last week's parashah ended with the information that Noah found favor, cheyn, Hebrew cheyn, in God's sight, literally be'enei Elohim, in the eyes of the Lord. And so now we continue on with that. We have Eyleh Toldot Noach. Noach ish tzaddik, tamim haya bedorotav. Eyleh, these are the toledot, generations. And let's take a look at this word. It's interesting. We have an interesting parallel in Proverbs 27:1, where it says in Hebrew, Al tithalel beyom machar. Do not boast yourself, right? Like reflexively, don't be arrogant concerning tomorrow, literally the day of the morrow, the day of morrow. Hebrew kilo teda ma yeled yom. For you do not know, or you will not know even. Notice, by the way, Hebrew students, it's imperfect, right? It can be present tense rendered here. You do not know what the day, or what a day, will birth. Isn't that interesting? You don't know what it will cause to be born. Very interesting there. So the Proverbs is using this word yeled, which is from the same root here. In toledot, it's hard to see. This letter here, the vav, would have been a yod in the root, right? Yeled, right? So it's saying a yeled is a baby or a child, right? And the verbal form is to give birth, right? Or to have a child. And so the proverb is, it's interesting. It makes this metaphor that the day gives birth or causes to give birth to your Schicksal, they say in German, like your fate for the day. It's interesting. Continue on. Noach. This is what I mentioned when we were looking at the Masorah. When a person's name is mentioned 2 times in a row, this means he was a righteous person. At least comparatively, right? So maybe he made teshuvah if he wasn't righteous, etc. Dr. Vera shares an interesting verse from the brother of the Messiah. And the verse that he shares says, it's from the book of Jacob, commonly mistranslated as James. The Greek says Yaaqov, right? So Yaaqov, it's kind of hard to mistake what that name could be in English. Gee, what could Yaaqov be? In Hebrew, we know Yaakov is is Jacob, but for some reason we end up with James. And the protesting Catholics just do not want to correct that error. It's already tradition. So here we go. So here's the verse. It's chapter 4, James, chapter 4, verse 13 through 16. And Doctor is quoting from the NASB. Come now, you who say, today or tomorrow we will go to such and such a city. and spend a year there and engage in business and make a profit. Yet you do not know what your life will be like tomorrow. You are just a vapor. You guys remember hevel? Right? The Hebrew word hevel means vapor. You are just a hevel that appears for a little while and then vanishes away, just like hevel's life. Instead, you ought to say, if the Lord wills, we will live and also do this or that. Enshallah. Just kidding. But as it is, you boast in your arrogance. Nice. All such boasting is evil. So that was a great verse to come to mind, Dr. De Vera. Very, very, very nice. I'm glad you shared that. It goes with our verse, and it also goes with the proverb. Let me just scroll up, see if anybody else had a comment that I missed. Okay, that's it. Okay, good. Okay. Continuing on. Ish tzadik, tamim haya bedorotav. A man who was just. Tzadik, he was just. Tamim, complete or perfect. Haya, he was. Bedorotav, in his dor, in his generation. So let's look at this phrase. Hebrew tzadik tamim haya bedorotav. There's an interesting comment about this. A couple of comments from two rabbis in the Talmud. Sorry, I didn't write Talmud. I just said Sanhedrin. In the Talmud tractate Sanhedrin, page 108a. Hold on just a sec. Wait. Okay. And the quote tells us, the Talmud tells us that Rabbi Yochanan says, relative to the other people, quote, bedorotav, Hebrew, of his generation, he was righteous and wholehearted, but not relative to those of acharei dorot, other generations. So you see what's happening? The sages are saying, why is this word here? Why do we have to know? With other lawful people, the Bible tells us simply that so-and-so was Hebrew tzaddik, that he was just, that he was righteous. And isn't it interesting? Vikoi karan to my Arabic enshallah. Just kidding. So isn't it interesting that the word for righteousness, it's from the same root, it's tsedeq. A tzaddik is someone who is tsedeq. That the Hebrew tsedeq, righteousness, also means lawfulness. For example, just. Right? And this Hebrew word we see here in Genesis chapter 6, verse 9, Hebrew tzaddik, this is a person who practices lawfulness. Right? So this kind of person is the opposite of the kind of person about whom Yeshua the Messiah is speaking when he says that not everyone who comes to me and says, Rabbi, Rabbi, or Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but those who do the will of my Father. And he elaborates. He says that many will come to him on that day, the day of judgment, and they will say, did we not heal the sick in your name? And did we not cast out demons in your name? That's the sound I imagine them making as they leave. They're being cast out. But I will say to them, leave me, make an exodus. Tsedeq in the Hebrew, leave me, make an exodus. You workers of lawlessness. So, and I've abbreviated the verse, but I left out some other stuff. The ones who are righteous, etc., etc., etc. But it's interesting to note the anomia in the Greek. Greek anomia is the word Yeshua is using there. Meaning not, and nomia is the same thing as nomos. It means law, Torah. Those of you who work against the Torah, go against the Torah. You think that faith alone, without any kind of action derived from the faith, is a real faith. At issue is what it means to truly believe. We're told by the brother of the Messiah, Jacob, whom Dr. Vera just quoted, that faith without actions is dead. Without ma'aseh, Torah, without actions, legal actions, just actions. He says, you say you believe. You do well. The shadim, the demons, also believe in God, and they tremble, believing that God exists, believing that he sent his son, the Messiah, to die for the sins of mankind and to correct the actions of the fallen sons of God is not enough. Just kind of a knowledge level belief is not enough. One must truly believe it to their core. As we discussed last time, they must be born, Greek anothen, from above. Only then such a person is motivated to act in their life, to not just be lazy sitting on the couch watching TV, surfing Facebook, but doing something, studying, sharing, helping those in need, demonstrating gratitude to our Father for allowing his son to be tortured and murdered for our sakes. Have you ever thought about what was the greater love? Is it a greater love for someone to lay down their life for their friends? Or is it a greater love for a parent to allow their child to be tortured and then killed? What's the greater love? This does not diminish Yeshua's actions, but it's just an interesting thought experiment I came up with some years back, and I realized, oh my gosh, the Father is really the one suffering. It's not just about God becoming aware of what it's like to be a human, so he can feel what it's really like and show that it's possible to resist temptation. It's more than that. It's that the Father was willing to make the ultimate sacrifice. Not one's own life. Many American soldiers in Vietnam intentionally jumped on grenades to save their friends. Okay? Normal sinful humans can do this act out of love. But of those soldiers who did that, I don't think any of them would have thrown their child on the grenade to save their friends. You see what I'm trying to say? It's kind of an inverse Hebrew call v'chomer, light and heavy. So this is why we demonstrate the gratitude to our Father. Last year and the year before, I shared some teachings about why we do not worship Yeshua. It is unbiblical to worship Yeshua. You should not be praying to him. You should not be singing to Yeshua. You understand? And in those teachings, we have them out in abbreviated form on the Hebrew Literacy channel on YouTube. I don't know which one. It's we're trying to find. Anyway, I don't know. It's one of the teachings out there. But I went through and I demonstrated Tarka Hall. I don't know if you guys remember. I showed you all the places where the English Bibles, various translations. I picked all of the common ones. I think we had like 5 English translations, from King James to NASB to NAB to NIV and the ESV, and I selected every place where it says that somebody worshipped Yeshua in English, and then I showed you the underlying Greek word. And every time that it said that they were worshiping Yeshua, it was the Greek word proskene-o. Greek proskene-o. And when we went back, and then I took you back into the Septuagint, the Greek translation of the Hebrew, and I showed you the underlying Hebrew words for proskene-o. And this word, the underlying Hebrew, is mishtachavim, or mishtachave, hishtachave, which translates to prostrate down, right? To bow in front of someone. Get on the knees and go down to the ground. So let's take the example of the wise men. The three wise men, the astrologers, they come from the east, and they go to Israel, and they find where Yeshua HaMashiach was born, by Beit Lechem, Hebrew Beit Lechem, and they give gifts, and they proskene-uim, they mishtachavim in Hebrew. Greek proskene-uim, in Hebrew mishtachavim. They bow down and they give gifts. Okay. Many of the English Bibles say they worshipped him. But I've told you what the underlying word is. So when we trace this word back into the Tanakh, we find many examples of people doing this to people, including Avraham Avinu, Abraham our father. When he goes to the pagans, the Bnei Chait, it's called in Hebrew, Bnei Chait, and he purchases the cave called Hebrew Hamachpalah. They purchase this cave. He purchases the cave, the place, and the land around it. It says that Avraham did this thing. Vayishtachu Avraham el Bnei Chait in the Hebrew. And he prostrated down before these people, the sons of Chait. So would it be correct in our English translations of the Torah to say that Abraham worshipped the sons of Chait? Is that appropriate? No. What about when one of the wives of King David, Bathshebah, she and the prophet Nathan come to him when Adoniah, one of his sons, is trying to take over the kingdom. He's claiming that he will inherit. And the king, David HaMelech, is very old. And the text tells us that they did the same verb, mishtachavim. They prostrated down to the king. So does this mean, should we translate, they worshipped him? The prophet Nathan worshipped King David? His wife, Bathsheba, worshipped him? Of course not. Of course not. This is an ambiguous word. It literally means to prostrate down. When used in an obvious location of worship, for example, the Beit HaMikdash, which is the temple, right? Then it can be interpreted as worship, but it's best to acknowledge what's happening physically, that they are prostrating down. And you can understand it as an act of worship. The other word we have in Hebrew for this, Hebrew avad, ayin beit dalet, literally to serve. This word is where we get the real word for worship. In Hebrew, the concept of worship, we had a drash on this a while back, before we started the triennial cycle. I hope some of you remember, where we discussed that true worship is service. Avad in Aramaic, well, in Jewish Aramaic, means to do something. To do something. A fitting cognate translation, to do something. Worshipping is doing something. The Levitical service, they served the Lord, they worshipped him. In Jewish literature, in the Talmud, and in the Mishnah, we have a tractate called Hebrew Avodah Zarah, which is strange worship, right? Like we have the strange fire, strange worship, which means worshiping idols. It's incorrect worship. That is Avodah Zarah, because Avad is to worship, unequivocally. It doesn't imply a special motion of the body. It's not from the word to prostrate down to the ground. It means to worship, to serve. Whom will you serve? As for me and my house, we will serve Hashem. as Yehoshua fittingly says. He doesn't say, to whom shall we prostrate down? You see? Because this is ambiguous. This action, when done to a person, demonstrates either humility, as in the case of Abraham before the pagans, when he wanted to buy their cave, or it demonstrates, there's an English word for this, obeisance, right? You're acknowledging someone as king, especially if you're giving them a gift as well. And I showed in my teaching all of the mappings, every single time where the English translations claim that someone is worshiping Yeshua, that is a false translation based on Gentile tradition. I felt led right now to go into this a bit, but I hope this helps. I heard a couple weeks ago, I heard there's been some confusion with some of the members of the Kahal about this. You have to remember, guys, if you know that we've taught something here, and then you read in your English Bible and you go, look, it says worship, ask a question. Come back at us, okay? Because there are answers to these things. This was something that I would not have found out if I hadn't been involved in the Greek. I just thought, wait a second, I remember reading that they worshiped Yeshua. But the Greek doesn't mean that. It's come to mean that over time. And the real key is the Hebrew behind the Greek. That shows us. We have the word that maps to Hebrew avad. It occurs in the apostolic writings. It is used. And that is also translated worship in English Bibles. The Greek word that Hebrew avad maps to, the Greek latra-eo, to worship, to serve. And we do have this word in the apostolic writings, the, quote, New Testament writings, unquote. But never, not a single occurrence is that word used to reference the Messiah, the Son of God. Never. So I hope you guys will understand, any of you who had questions, what's happening. We are presenting information as we access it in the original languages, the languages which have preserved Scripture. Not by some Roman Catholic or Protestant Catholic's opinion or tradition in how to translate this, derived from Luther or Yamach Shemo, or from Calvin, Yamach Shemo, or any of these other wicked founders of the Protestant movement. Okay? So what does this mean? Is it a sin to worship Yeshua? Is it a sin to sing praise to the Son of God? I'm not ready to go that far. I would just say, as Priscilla and Aquila did when they pulled the young rabbi aside after his drash, and they said to him, they taught him a, quote, more perfect way, unquote. So this is not to condemn anybody, all right? It's just to clarify. And if someone knows the link to my teaching on this out on Hebrew Literacy channel on YouTube, could you please, in the chat, share the teaching that talks about it? We have very detailed Josh a couple years ago, but then there's also one where I go through all the verses I'm talking about, at least, to prove it linguistically. So you understand, the apostolic writings has the word, which means, definitely means to worship. It's in there. It's in many places. Don't you find it a little bit odd that it's never used to refer to Yeshua, only to the Father? And don't you find it odd that the other one that means to bow down, i.e. to show respect to someone who is a king, i.e. the Messiah, the King of the Jews, don't you think it's interesting that that is the only one that's used to reference, quote, worship, unquote, of Yeshua? So you see, it is a translator option. I'm not saying, by the way, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that these translators were doing something evil in their minds. This is simply Gentile tradition is what it is. It's tradition. And when you have tradition, you need to look at the source of that tradition. Is your source from lawbreakers? Or is it from someone who's been faithful to the God of Israel, keeping his laws over the centuries? And even so, we can look at traditions and see if they make sense for our day and age. But we start from the assumption of, what is the tradition on this? Does this tradition make sense for current technology, et cetera, et cetera? And in this case, it's a translational tradition. And I think what happens also is many of the translators who translate the, quote, New Testament, unquote, from Greek, many of them, I think, do not know Hebrew. And so they're unaware of the underlying Hebrew usage of the language there. Okay, there's some comments. Let me go through the comments here. All right. Usually what happens at this point is people start quoting me scripture that show that Yeshua is God, or he's part of the Godhead, or something like that. And we're not saying he's not. That's, if you listen carefully to what I'm saying, I'm choosing my words very carefully. We are saying there are no examples of worship of the Messiah in the Bible. You see? Okay, let's see. Okay, Dr. Vera, I'm sorry, your reference of offering of Isaac by Abraham. Oh, right. That's what I was talking about, the father. Right. What an act of love for God that was. Nice point. Can't believe I missed that one. Good job. I'm glad you're here. Bessie says, yes, please post it. It's in Hebrew literacy, that teaching. It's there. It's from last year, the Torah cycle. I just don't know which teaching I go into that on. That's what I'm saying. So if anybody knows, send the link. Yeah, it's posted. It's been out there over a year, but and it's kind of the watered down one. It's not the in-depth, but it still shows all the verses, and it shows the Hebrew and it shows the Greek. So it's detailed enough to make the case. Yep. So if somebody knows which Torah portion I discussed that in last year, please let us know so we can tell people, hey, of the videos that are out there already, it's that one. Okay. I know sometimes it was hard to go through those. By the way, this is not judging anybody. Last year we usually had 2.5 hour long drashot, right? So, but it's there. The evidence is there. Okay, let's see. Bessie says, Al-Pasumi in Telegram or here about the worship to Yeshua. Thanks. Okay. Okay. Dr. Vera says how this relates regarding worship of Yeshua. Dr. Vera writes, okay, this is, okay, I think you're quoting, yeah, okay. Dr. Vera is quoting from Philippians chapter 2, verse 8 through 11, okay? And this is about, glory to the Father. It says, being found in appearance as a man, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to the point of death, even death on a cross. For this reason also, God highly exalted him and bestowed on him the name which is above every name, every human name, I might say, is what they're discussing here. It's not over the Father's name. So that at the name of Yeshua, every knee will bow, right? Just as we saw the wise man doing. He's the king of those who are in heaven and on earth and under the earth. And that every tongue will confess that Yeshua HaMashiach is Kurios. In the Greek, he is Kurios. He is master. To the glory of God the Father. Okay, and you'll notice so yes, this goes perfectly with what we're teaching. Exactly. People will bow to him. They will not worship him. As it says there in Philippians chapter 2, verses 8 through 11. Thanks for sharing that, Doc. That's a great verse. Patricia says, if service is worship, well, there's two words in Hebrew for service, just by the way. Then is there any way we are serving Yeshua as we try our best to obey his teachings? Okay, so there's another word. Sheret is the root, shin, reish, tet, Hebrew, sheret, and this is to serve, like to do a service, right? Like a minister might do a service, a rabbi might serve his congregation, right? And so by serving the congregation, I'm clearly not worshiping you guys, right? And so this is, I think, more akin to what you're thinking of there, Patricia. It's a language issue. It's a good question, though. And then Dr. Vera says, and actually we could actually come back even further. Where did Yeshua's teachings originate? Does Yeshua teach anything truly distinct from Tanakh, or is it mostly interpreting properly the scriptures that we had already? Yeshua, you remember with the parable where there is the man in hell, right? He's in Gehenna. He says, send somebody back, right? And Yeshua says, even if someone comes back from the dead, they will not listen because they have the Torah and the Hebrew Nevi'im, the law and the prophets. He doesn't say, and they will have my teachings too, you see? So he's basically saying that the Torah and the Nevi'im are enough for proper moral understanding of how to relate to his Father, the God of the universe. Yeah, Dr. Vera, exactly. This is the importance of indexing the topics, right? So we can find it easier. Yeah, Totally. I think you're catching the vision, yeah?